I noticed as soon as like I look up from my feet, there's a Moorish plate on this Audi, and the windows are tint, right? This is the first time I've ever seen this, and oh my goodness, like I try to walk up and get their attention. I'm like, I'm literally about to meet some Moors, and I just look, and the windows are tint now, so I had to like try to get their attention. I like tapped on the window, and the most beautiful Empress got out the car, and she greeted me.
Wow.
It was great. It was awesome, and I was able to network with a Moor that I just randomly ran into in my own territory. So, yeah.
Awesome. It's time for that, though. It's time for us to, you know, start seeing each other, because there's way more of us than we thought.
Now, right. Empress and Noble Apollo, I feel like tingly all over just because you were so happy. That's how we're supposed to greet each other all the time. Yes. And we are the celebrities. People should be like in awe whenever we walk around, and that's where they stole hypothecated autograph. Celebrity. We have the autograph. We have the status. And never mind. This is not my show. But I'm just so excited because you are, I mean, just your voice, Noble Apollo, that's how we're supposed to be greeting each other in love and in awe. Just seeing another Moor should just be so delightful to us. Islam, I yield. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
You're welcome. And it was
beautiful. I'm just excited because the things that we have been waiting to see.
Has your shit show started yet, Pauline?
You know,
How you stupid ass Moor?
Wait a minute. Let me bury the dead. Let me bury the dead. You know, the things that we've been excited and waiting to see. It's too bad he's not talking to us because the dead can't speak to the living. But you know, for him to be a corpse, he sure is walking around a lot. But there's way more of us than we ever thought, and at this point, we're going to actually start seeing one another. That's the part that's exciting to me, is we need to start seeing each other, knowing where we are and knowing who's in our territories and connecting, because that's really what this is all about, is we're supposed to be connecting with one another. I'm glad to hear that too, Justice Apollo. And I would be
Where's all your
lap
dogs,
excited, you know, if I had
dogs, Polly?
I would be just as excited too if I had not seen any Moors in the territory. We've been trained to think that we're the only ones. Every Moor that I've talked to and everyone that I know of has said the same thing, including myself at one point, where we felt like we were the only Moors present. We were the only ones in the territory for miles. Yeah. And then we started seeing and meeting up with other Moors, which is awesome for us. I love that.
Islam.
And Moorish tag, that's how we're going to know each other. Yes, Empress.
Yes, I remember when I first got my tags and I was in New York and I went to Brooklyn, and I was going to go to one of the meetings that I thought was there, but they were painting and they had they canceled the meeting that day. But all the Moors were still outside. They were, instead of meeting, they were redoing the floors, and so I pulled in front of the building. And they were like, oh, my God. And they were like, you know, nudging each other, like, look at the plate. And then NYPD came around, and they stopped, and they looked at the plate. They took off, and then they turned around, came back around, and they looked at the plate. 3 times they did that. And so the Moors knew at that time that the plates were real, you know. And so I went further into the city, and there was a Moor that was following me. And he was like right on me. He was running lights behind me, trying to catch up with me. And I said, okay, let me just pull over. And I rolled the back window down. And I said, yes. And he was like, where did you get that plate? And then we went into the whole thing about the Moors and all that stuff. And I sent him to the website. And I happened to have Justice Abbasi's card with me, and I said, give him a call. He'll tell everything to you. And he started crying. He was like, I cannot believe that I'm seeing this on this land. He was like, oh my God, where did you? And so, you know, they really love us, and they want to see us out and doing our demonstrations. And that's like you said, the tags will let us know, but when you're demonstrating inside the building, the Moors will know. Islam, I hear.
Yeah. Islam. Oh, I'm just glad we can be ourselves. It's like a breath of fresh air. It really is like a breath of fresh air. I love it. And then even while we're demonstrating tags and so on and so forth, we, you know, man, I had a demonstration on Monday that just I didn't think I could be blown away so much by a demonstration, but the demonstrations actually make it real. They make it real for us. It was just a crazy demonstration, and I'll tell you about it a little later in the call. But first, I want to get a couple of things, make sure that I get them on the record. One of the things is that we have some national strategies that we're doing, and those national strategies, we're starting to see them come to fruition. And we want to make sure that we don't get too excited, or that we don't get, hang on just 1 second. Let me go. Okay.
Islam. Is anybody there?
Islam. You know what happened? She'll be back.
Yep, she'll be right back. No,
go ahead and finish up, Empress. Go ahead.
That you know, we're fearful.
What about Janiyah?
We're fearful because we're taught to be subservient to the subjects, And when you come to yourself like a prodigal son, you'll realize that you already have your inheritance. I was talking about that earlier today. When the prodigal son, before he was prodigal, he went to the father and said, I want my inheritance. And the father didn't say, okay, I'm going to will it to you, or you're going to get it after I die. That same day, they were divided up into their inheritance. And he went out and did what he did, but when he came back, guess what? Unlimited credit. He didn't squander everything. He just fell beneath the consciousness, and he wasn't competent to run his empire. And that's one thing that we have to realize. You have to do the on-the-job training, if I can use that, of your liens, your court cases, to get those muscles moving again. Because you will remember that stuff, but you have to realize that everything is here. He didn't ask anybody for anything. Rather than going to ask somebody, because he knew that part of him was in there. You know, we speak in affidavits. So whenever you're building your faith and your strength, as far as demonstrations go, just remember who you are. There's no one above you on this planet. We were here first. We speak in the language of affidavit. We don't commune with the dead. You see the YouTube videos saying these people are pulled over. They say, Empress said we don't talk to the dead, to the lady, but we always say we don't answer questions. And they understand that, and they leave. They leave you alone because they cannot talk to a living person if they are dead. Just think about being in a morgue. When you go into a store to demonstrate with no mask, you are walking into a cemetery, and you're the only live person there. No one is going to jump up out of the grave to do anything to you because they can't. And so just have that in mind when you're demonstrating. You're going to be shaky and fear and scared a little bit, but, you know, just keep on going through and remember who you are. Okay? Islam, I yield.
Empress, you know, you can keep on going. You can keep on going. You saying the things that I would say anyway, you know, that we all know. We just reaffirm what we know among one another. It's, you know, the demonstration that I was referring to that happened on Monday. Monday was just a day that I will remember that day for a long time because I found out a few things. Even over the last few days, I found out things that I did not know. For example, when the Moors came here on October 31st for the great solemn assembly that we had, where we went out to nationall, we also stopped by another place where our ancient buildings are, and they're buried under, you know, they got buried in the mudfloods, and the buildings are starting to show. And so we went over some of the markers that you see when you go, when you're looking to see where our buildings are. Because believe it or not, there's not a square inch of this land that's not sitting on top of our stuff. All of our stuff. That's our real vast estate. That's where everything got covered up. All of the ancient seeds that heal us, all of the ancient waters, everything is covered up. And the way that you will know where those places are that they just could not build on top of, they usually call them a natural preserve or you know, something like that. So I found out recently that my domicile is sitting on a natural preserve. It's got our buildings under it. And it's marked right up to the fence on the side, and then my domicile is elevated just slightly, and it sits on top of that which is ours. But I think everyone's does, though. I think everyone's domicile is on top of that which is ours. And some of that stuff has been uncovered. You know, for example, downtown Seattle, you can go downtown Seattle territory and look at the underground city, quote unquote. But that's just the beginning. That's not even the real thing. That's just a hint for us. So anyway, I spend quite a bit of time going out into the territory looking for the ancient markers. And there are so many of them that it's just unbelievable. Excuse me. I need to drink a little bit more water. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is Justice Apollo in Atlanta territory. I understand what you mean, because when I was looking at or when I was observing the landscape of the city and how they have this big interstate that goes through the city, I-75 and 85, and it kind of does an S-curve right between downtown and midtown, but the hills, like the hills that we have to drive over, are so significant, and it was almost like I could see it looked like a mound. Like a mound would, if the highway and the city infrastructure was not there, and the walls and barricades that they built was not there, it would be a mound there. Is what I kind of noticed. So I plan on doing some of what you mentioned just now about going to look for, you guys would call it the markers in the territory.
Yes, I call them ancient markers. The ancient markers. Usually it's limestone barriers. It's also, they have red and white roadblocks. It's like driveways that lead to nowhere. And then they'll have a red and white barrier in front of it. And it just looks like an open field or a forest or something like that with not that many trees, but enough trees to cover. So on Monday, me and one of the empresses in the territory went out to go look, because I wanted to show her one of the barriers that I saw. And so we're walking out in the territory, and we walked across this plot of land, okay? And of course, all of our ancient barriers have either nature preserved or some foreign hybrid has put a private property sign on the land in capital letters, in all capital letters. And so if they do it that way, I usually don't pay too much attention to that because, it's ours. And every single time that we go out, those are things that I look for, is giant rocks or big pieces of limestone. So we were walking across this field that it had private property marked on it, but we know that that's not talking to us. And there was a nature preserve right next to it. So we were walking across this barrier, not a barrier, but it's just an open space. And we were approached by the dead, okay? It was a dead person. And the dead person started talking, and we already know that they can't talk to us and we can't talk to them. And when the dead person started talking, the first thing I said to the dead man was, you don't have the authority to ask us any questions, so don't ask any questions. In fact, we are not, you can't even talk to us. And I turned my back. And of course, he pulled out his phone like he was going to call, for backup, dead backup. And so he was talking to someone on the phone, another corpse on the phone, while me and the empress were looking, and I was pointing out some of the things that I saw, because these things are very close to where I domicile. And so a female corpse walked up, and we were going to go back across this open field, and the corpse, it was like a scene out of The Walking Dead. The corpse got in front of me, and she put her two arms out to, like she's on a cross or something,
Hey, you stupid.
She put her two arms out, and she She was blocking me, and she was going, you can't go here, you can't go here, this is private property, this is private property. Well, I knew she wasn't talking to me, so I kept walking. And I didn't say anything to her, I just kept walking. And the empress that was with me, I turned to her and I said, she's dead, so don't talk to her. Because the empress was wanting to talk to her because she was getting too close to me. And that didn't bother me because I know she's dead and I know she can't stop me from going anywhere. So I told the empress, I said, she's dead. Don't even talk to her, she's dead. And when I said that, the dead corpse moved out of the way and she said, well, go that way then. And then she turned to the empress that would talk to her, and she said, because she was hoping to contract with her, and she said, the court said, I don't know why you hang with her, she's crazy. And I'm like, thinking to myself, okay, so they have a script that they're supposed to say, because that's kind of crazy. That's like, that was very random. I don't know why you hang with her, she's crazy, as if she knew me or something, you know. And she was hoping to divide the living from the dead and take one of us with her back to the cemetery. And so she couldn't take the empress back to the cemetery because I was telling the empress, don't talk to her, she's dead. And when I said she was dead, she did what dead people do. Once she said that to the empress, she walked away and turned her back. And she kept her back turned while we were walking across this field. And then the male that was on the phone, he put his head down. After I said, she's dead, don't talk to her, he put his head down, and his voice got real low, so we couldn't hear what he was saying on the phone or whatever. But it didn't matter what he was saying on the phone. And so we went ahead and walked back across, and then we took a few photos of some of the, there's a giant rock that's just very way out of place looking, you know, in the space. So we took some photos of the markers that were there. And one thing about these fields too is that in certain places, no trees will grow in those places. And so as we were coming back out of the area, and then we went up through the preserve and we stepped out onto the street, two carloads, or it wasn't carloads, but it was two policy enforcer conveyances pulled up. And one of the policy enforcers got out, and he said, they were in front of us, and he said, hey, I heard you two were trespassing on private property. And so I turned to the empress, I said, Empress, don't talk to him. And we walked slowly right on past him and kept going. And he said, oh, well, I guess you're not going to talk to me, huh? Okay. And he went and talked to somebody else that was out there in their driveway. And so we walked on around, back around to my domicile, and they didn't pursue. They couldn't do anything. See, if we don't talk to them, they can't do anything. Now, as we were passing by him, there was a brother in his driveway, and this brother said to the policy enforcers, first he asked us, he said, are y'all okay? I said, yeah, we're good, you know. And he said, he looked at the policy enforcer, he said, hey, leave the black people alone. And after that, I just, you know, we just kept on, you know, because we were walking past his domicile. And so we kept on going and went on around the corner. And I started to say something to him about we're not black, but I said, you know what, we're not even going to engage that either. Because he started talking to them and telling them who he was. And he had a position in their society. And so I guess he told them to go about their business or whatever, and they did what he said. But they couldn't bother us anyway. And so I said all of that to just say that my mind was just blown at how calmly the Spirit allowed us to be as we walked right past them, past the court's policy enforcers, and they couldn't do anything because we would not acknowledge them. I didn't even look at them. But I told the Empress, I said, don't say a word to them. Do not talk to them. And we didn't talk to them, and we kept walking like we were strolling on a nice nature walk, which is what we were doing. And we kept on going around to my domicile, which was not far away. But see, again, they can't do anything to us if we don't contract with them. They already know we have contracts on the public record that says, or affidavits on the public record that say that we're the creditors and we're the heirs and we have no contract with the dead. You know, and so in the past I would have been very scared in a situation like that, but not anymore. I know that I don't ever have to talk to a policy enforcer as long as I live. And I live forever. We all do. The heirs do. We never have to say another word to them, ever. We are our own police and law enforcement. So that just, once again, the ancestors blew my mind, and I was just like, wow, this is just amazing that they actually, not the dead court citizens, nor the policy enforcers, who are nothing more than court citizens, subjects. None of them could do anything. They couldn't stop us from going wherever we wanted to go. They couldn't stop us. All we did was keep going. And even when they tried to block, we just keep going. Not violent. And at one point, the Empress that I was with said, if she would have put her hands on you, I would have decked her. And I said, that's the last thing we need. We don't need to. And you know, and I honor the Empress. She's she's a strong Empress, very strong and very, very competent. But sometimes when people get in their feelings, sometimes. But the last thing we need is because they can't do anything. I'll be honest, the foreigners can't do anything. And I knew that. Even with her standing there like a quarterback or something, trying to stop, all I had to do was just keep going, which we did. And we walked right back over and took some more photos, and then we went on our way. And that was when we came across the policy enforcers, who couldn't do anything either. Yea, so we walk through the valley of the shadow of death. Because, you know, they're a shadow of our lower self. That's what that means. We will fear no evil. You know. And Empress Tatali, I see you in the chat, though. We don't need that. Y'all got to be calm, Moors. We got to be cool. We got to be calm and know that we got this without any, you know, we don't have to lift a finger towards the subject. We don't have to. We have to just be ourselves, you know. So once we got to my domicile, we stayed in the travel way that they call a driveway. We don't call it that because we don't drive. We travel. We stayed in the travel way for a while, just taking in the fact that we literally walked through the shadow, past the shadow of death, and they couldn't do anything. To me, that's worth everything. It's worth everything. That is the big, hairy-looking monster that I asked the ancestors, how are we going to get past that? And even with whatever they have in their court world, they cannot touch us because we're not in that world. We're not. We're in a completely sovereign jurisdiction. And that's the difference between that which makes this our land and that which makes us think we're in a place of where we're under occupation. We're not under occupation. When we know that this is our land and we're not in that jurisdiction. Even though they seem like they're walking past us back and forth, they're not in the same place. I know that sounds a little bit strange, but jurisdictions don't have boundaries like that. Jurisdictions is the being. The being is the jurisdiction. Because they can stand in the same place that we're standing in, but their jurisdiction is the dead jurisdiction, so they're not in the same place we're in. Not at all. Jurisdiction is us, the sovereign jurisdiction. So that just, again, I've known that because I've had to not speak to them and know who I am. And I believe that last year when they came here 3 weeks in a row, and I've told you all about that, they came 3 weeks in a row knocking on the door at the domicile. And every morning for 3 weeks, knocking on the door, looking for a citizen. And since no citizens were here, what did I have to say? I didn't have anything to say through the door. I didn't have anything to say at all to the dead. Because they wouldn't have been hearing me. They'd have been hearing what they think is a citizen. And that's their mistake right there. But I wasn't going to give them that, I don't talk to them through the door and don't talk to them at all. And they can't do anything. That is where that statement that says, anything you say can and will be used against you, okay, we don't have to say nothing. We don't give them the tools. We keep the tools and use them to build our nation. We don't speak the same language as them. So that along with some of the other things that I've learned recently, especially with regard to the Second and Third Amendment to the Constitution, putting those together with the fact that if we don't speak to them, they can't put their hands on us, they can't touch us, they can't kick in doors, they can't do anything. They cannot violate our space. Putting that together with those things and the things that we know about us makes way for us to properly, competently, and safely claim that which is ours and not have to worry about being violated by them. I mean, think about it. If policy enforcers cannot put their hands on you, they can't touch you, they can't approach you or anything because you know that they're not talking to you. And you don't talk to them. And you do not engage them at all on any level. Then you can claim what is rightfully yours. And if they show up and you don't talk to them, they just have to leave. Period. They just have to leave. They can't violate because you agreed not to contract with them. Very simple. It's a very simple concept, but it's difficult because because we've been trained otherwise. We've been trained. Like when the corpses came up to us to stop us from crossing on our land, the inclination was to talk back and to tell them who we are and all of that. But the thing is, they know who we are already. They've always known like that. They've always known that, who we are. But we think we have to explain it to them when we don't. All we have to do is not acknowledge them and not talk to them. And keep doing what we're doing. Then all the land is ours. And no one can stop us from claiming whatever is ours. I mean, that's pretty powerful. And when I hear some of the things that the foreigners are saying about, oh, property lines are going to disappear, and we don't want that. Now I see what they're saying. There's no such thing as private property on our land. Everything belongs to the heirs. Everything belongs to the heirs. All domiciles, everything. Everything. As long as we're peaceful, we're sincere, we're honorable, and we know that no matter who of them comes, we don't have to talk to them, including ones that look like us. We don't have to talk. If there's a sleeping Moor who thinks they're a citizen policy enforcer or something like that, we don't have to talk to them either. We really don't. We can talk to them offline and tell them who they are. But if they're acting in a corporate capacity, we don't have to talk to them either. We don't have to be rude or anything like that either. We don't have to be warlike. We can just not speak. Period. And in this territory and in many other territories, yes, that is going to be the key to possession of the land. I heard one of the Albion foreign colonizing quote-unquote preachers say the other day that possession is a war term. Now, this is his interpretation of the word possession. He said that possession means to put the occupants out by force and leave them poor. And he said that someone is trying to put the Americans out. And, you know, and he was an Albion, foreign Christian preacher, colonizer. His only, that one that I was listening to there, just kind of observing. I wasn't really listening, I was observing. That one was, you know, some of them are only that to colonize. They know what their job is, to colonize our land and block and make sure that we don't get back what's rightfully ours. And if we're afraid of them, they will continue to occupy, but we're not afraid. And so they're leaving, as you can see. Many of us can see that they're leaving. So, are there any other questions or comments about that? Because again, as we move into this next phase, the cosmos is in our favor. The moon, the sun, the stars, the energies are all in our favor. 1 trillion% in our favor. And I remember telling you all, like on past calls, that when I asked, this was probably about a year and a half ago or something, I asked one of our teachers, how are we going to, you know, when we started doing, right when we started doing court actions, or when we were considering, so yeah, this was about two years ago, a little over 2 years ago, and we were talking about the restoration of the consular court. And I asked one of our teachers, you know, if they don't show up, because I did my first court action in 2018, and of course they didn't show up. So I asked one of our teachers that, you know, what is it like if they don't show up? Do we still do the court action? Because I get asked that question a lot too. And our teacher told me that we are to put the energy out into the atmosphere. And when we put it out into the atmosphere, and this is the part that really stuck with me that I'm seeing now, he said, nature will come to your aid. He said, nature will come to your aid. And I'm seeing that right now, all of nature has come to our aid to help us do this. Nature is an energy that we have within us. And nature has absolutely come to our aid. So I want to shift gears just a little bit and talk strategy, national strategy. In the past, whenever things happened in our quote-unquote communities, because that's what we thought they were back in the day, we would look around for a solution, and generally after running through a litany of emotions over which remedy should be used, we would always end up doing one of three things, or all three of these things at once, which were completely ineffective, but those were our go-to remedies in our community, quote unquote, not knowing that we were really the nation and the law and the government. We would resort to marching and rioting and protesting. That was the first set of things we would do. And then it would be praying and holding vigils for the damage that was done to our nation and our government, not knowing that that's what we really were. And the third thing, after marching, rioting, protesting, praying, and holding vigils, we would do nothing but go back to the way things were. Those were the three remedies that we had when we thought we were black. Now we have strategies of our own for our nation and our government. And those strategies are many, many, many. Now that we're unified and we're together and we're moving as one, and we're speaking with one collective voice, when we put our affidavits on the public record, on government letterhead, that's all of us speaking with one voice. And we know that we are our own remedy. Our full faith and credit is in ourselves and no other. And it's important that we say that, because every place that you see during this lockdown of the citizens, because it's not a lockdown of the air, in fact, this is our freedom. Every place that's still seeming to be operating is only able to do so because there's at least one sleepy Moor who keeps roaming in there, wandering in their sleep, using whatever facility. It could be a church, it could be, a bank or whatever. The only reason that any of that is able to operate is because there is consent by the bloodline and birthright somewhere along the way, even though the majority of us do not consent. Okay, and that's where, but we don't have to really worry about those more. Why? Because the way things are designed is their ONA, their makeup, their structure, their cells are going to become increasingly uncomfortable going into those places. And then they're going to start looking around to see where everybody that looks like them went. And then they're going to come across the Moors in one way, in one form or another. And then they get to find out who they are and wake up. So in the meantime, I saw a minister of one of their fake Albion Christian commercial mercenaries, because it's a commercial action by every time they pass the plate. That's commerce. One of them had one of us up on their stage, and they were saying, and once that one got through singing and doing what he was doing up there, the minister turned to everyone and said, now you see God's face is in us. That's what he said. He turned to the other Albions, and as if to comfort them, as if to say, we can still do what we do because we got at least one God here whose faith is in us and not in himself, is what he was really saying. Our full faith and credit is in us and not in anyone else. We can govern our own vast estate. And those are the words that they do not want to hear. But that's too bad, because it's the truth. We can govern our own vast estate. That's what full faith and credit is about. Faith and credit go together. And faith is not even like what they told us in church. Faith without works is dead, but those works are national works. They didn't tell us that. The demonstrations that we are talking about, that's works. Faith without works is dead. And who's the dead people? Exactly. So we have national strategies that we are putting in place, and I'm just so grateful that the strategies are available to us. Part of those strategies is that we are continuing to cultivate our internal Holy Trinity, because this actually is a part, and it's actually in totality the estate. Okay, speaking of churches, when the churches and the Albions talk about the Holy Trinity, they are talking about the hypothecation of that which is us. So as we know, the Pope, the fake Pope in all capital letters, the one doing business as Queen in all capital letters, and the one doing business as President of the United States Corporation Company in all capital letters, all of that, that was considered the quote-unquote Holy Trinity that was over the Moors. That was the false perception that was put out there. And it stayed out there until we woke up and proclaimed that we are the Holy Trinity. Now, let me prove that we are the Holy One. Sumus de sanctum unum. We are the Holy Trinity as such. The first universal Trinity is the mind. We are the one mind, the great all-knowing one. We each and all are the great mind. There is no solution that we do not know. We are the solution to everything that's going on with us. We're the solution. And it has absolutely nothing to do with dead people. Foreign Christian Albions. Hybrids. We, number two, okay, so the first part of the Holy Trinity is the mind, which we all are that. And man is mind, that's what the Holy Quran says. Man is mind. That's us. We are the mind, the great one. The second part of the Holy Trinity is the soul. We are the soul. And this part of our Holy Trinity is the part of us that feels. So the mind thinks and creates. The soul feels. It houses our divine urges through which our ancestors speak. Our soul is the part of us that our ancestors speak through. They speak directly to us through our soul. And they use our feelings to do it. So sometimes you'll have a divine urge to do one thing or another. And yes, it is the thoughts of Allah come through our soul. So sometimes you have a divine urge to do one thing or another, and then when you do whatever it is that the ancestors have divinely said for you to do, because that's how they speak through us, then that thing turns out to be exactly what we needed it to be. And sometimes it's not, and usually it's not conventional. It's not something that we've done. The divine urge takes us outside of our comfort zone. It takes us outside of our comfort zone. But that's why the soul is so important. That's why people, even the dead want to claim that they have a soul. They want to claim that they have a soul. That's why religion was so important to them. It's because they wanted to claim. But see, during the time that we were asleep, they occupied that position unlawfully, seemingly, because our souls never went anywhere. We've always had them. But yes, even the soul could be falsely claimed by those who are dead. And if we're asleep and didn't speak, then guess what? The ethers work in their favor. And they become the wealthy and prosperous. And it seems like everything they say manifests. They were occupying unlawfully. And that is another reason also why when they came up with a lot of that New Age stuff, which was our science hypothecated, it seemed like they really were hearing from our ancestors, really. But it's only because we were not claiming that which belongs to us. We needed to claim our rightful ancestral divine connection. We needed to claim that. And we've done that. And so that's the second part of the Holy Trinity, our soul. For many of us, our soul manifested because it was the urge that caused us to, at some point, maybe go a different way, a different direction in our life, that ended up saving our lives because we went a different way. Some of us were told, don't go here today, go there. And then you find out that there was some terrible event that happened at the other place that you were going to go to, but you just decided, you had the urge not to go there. And when you didn't go, your destiny to continue to live manifested. And so our soul it also manifests through us because there are some who have been said to have an old soul. That's that young, really young person. Some of us were told that, she has an old soul. That ancestral information was coming through early for some of us. Not me. It didn't come through early for me. It came through what I would consider late, But the ancestors had a reason to not give me some information when I was little because I'm a Leo. I would have acted on it before it was time. So they were like, no, keep her asleep as long as possible so she won't go running her motor on, we need her to be around. So, and also our soul, and this is where spelling comes in at. Our soul is part and parcel of the solar system. Our ancestors are brilliant. They're just brilliant. They're brilliant. I'm telling you, they're brilliant. Our soul is part of the solar system. And that's why the sun and the moon play such major parts in all that we do. They're connected to us, and we're connected to the sun and the moon and the stars and the cosmos and creation. I think that's just beautiful for us. Beautiful. And next, the question is, do animals have a soul? We gotta think about that, huh? Did we give them one? This is the crazy part about that. Because we know that the foreigners that we created, we know that they are part human and part animal. We are part human and part God. And not really part, we're the whole of both. But did we give them a soul? We let them occupy souls while we slept. We let them occupy souls while we slept. And then they turned around and said, they don't have a soul. Pointing at us. And now that we're awake, no more occupying souls. We let them occupy everything while we were asleep. Our godness, we let them pretend to be sovereign. It was just an act because our souls never left us. Our sovereign status never left us and all of that. We just slept for a while and we would sign something, they would wake us up long and say, hey, sign this, We sign something and then we go back to sleep and they go off acting like, hey, we're it. We got it. We everything. We're the sovereign Americans, not them. That's what we did. And so this number 2, the second part of our Holy Trinity, is also why we say to each other, happy solar return. Because when we say happy solar return to one another, we are literally acknowledging one another's eternal existence. Whereas the foreign fakes say, happy birthday. Because born here, gonna stay here, and then return to the soil, to wherever we brought you from. Meanwhile, we're traveling throughout, coming and going, coming and going. Millions, trillions of years, eternal. That's us. And that's why we say happy solar return instead of happy birthday. And then they're supposed to say happy birthday because it's a day of them being here. And, it's temporary. It's not permanent like ours is. And that's not a bad thing. It's just a truth. It's a fact. The third part of our Holy Trinity, after the great mind, which is the creator, and the soul, which is the voice of and the urge and the manifestation of our ancestors, which is why we say we are the ancestors returned. The third part of our Holy Trinity, once we wake up, is these holy, sovereign, divine, original, indigenous bodies that we have that are created so wonderfully and magnificently. That's the third part, is our bodies. This that we are made of that cannot be recreated in a laboratory. Our sovereign bodies, our cells, now we know this to be true. Our cells are everlasting and can, just a moment, let me make sure we don't have, okay. Just a second, let me make sure we're keeping everything sovereign in here. I heard somebody come in. Okay. So our sovereign bodies and the cells are everlasting, and they can regenerate, our cells can regenerate indefinitely, forever, given the proper natural treatment. We can live in this form forever if we chose to. And I think we've always known that, but it's becoming much clearer now that we're awake how to do that. And that our land has provided us with everything we need to stay alive and healthy and young and vibrant for as long as we choose to. And then when we get ready to travel to other places, we will shed this one and go traveling. And then come back when we get ready. And so modern foreign hybrid medicine was completely and totally existing off of our eternal cells by way of Moors such as Henrietta Lacks. If you have time to do a little research on Empress Henrietta Lacks. Henrietta Lacks, her cells, after she passed of cancer, okay, and you know, I could say a whole lot about that because we know cancer is that's not naturally occurring in the Moors. It is caused by outward consumption of things that are not natural. Henrietta Lacks, her cells were used as cures, and her cells were kept alive long after she transitioned in some room temperature water. In some room temperature water. And of course, there were things added to it, you know, certain vitamins and mineral type, proteins rather, that were added to it in modest form. And her cells are still alive today. And she passed away decades ago. Decades ago. And science took her, the foreign hybrids took her cells and started just creating cures and creating healing cures for everything. If the environment, and this is something that we're going to be, our Moorish scientists are going to be looking at. They're already looking at it. If the environment of the sovereign womb is recreated, these bodies can live forever. If the environment of the sovereign womb is recreated, these bodies can live forever. but it must be done by us. So the foreign hybrids we've heard of them trying to do things like that. You know, we've heard of them trying to do things like that. But it's not going to work for them because the dead and the living cannot amalgamate in that manner. That's still a form of amalgamation. And, you know, so that's something to just think about. I just thought I would put that out there, that, you know, they've tried that, but once we do it, and that science is not difficult. It's not difficult. And you know how we take baths, you know, and we always say we taught them to take a bath. You know, we taught them how to bathe. When we were bathing, that was a scientific situation. It was to lengthen and rejuvenate and regenerate our cells. Those were the kind of baths we were taking. And there are certain mineral lakes and aquifers and springs that recreate the sovereign womb to a degree. It gets as close as possible. And those are the things that we've been blocked from, that we are not blocked from anymore. And so we just have to go out and find them. And in fact, there are lists of natural aquifers and springs and natural lakes and things like that, that when we go to them, you know, there are stories in the bibliothek of times when the waters were disturbed, and when the waters were disturbed, everyone would run to the water to be healed of whatever it was that was ailing them. Aging is curable because we didn't age. Empress Alessandra. I didn't know that. I did not know that. No wonder, maybe we should be looking for all the places called Black this and Black that. Might be a clue. I believe it might be a hint based on what you put in the chat. Let me write that down. Dr. Phoebe talked about the healing water
Islam.
in the Honduras. Yes, Empress.
In Blackville, South Carolina, is a spring, and it's called God's Acre. You can Google it, and it's the only place that well, it'll tell you in there, but what they have stories about people being healed, and every time I go there to get the water, because my clients used to tell me that whenever they went to the doctor, they couldn't get anything remedied, they would go to the water. And so every time I go there, I ask the people who are there getting water. I mean, people have truckloads of containers. And one time I saw a water authority from Beaufort, South Carolina, with a tractor trailer of water. And I asked the woman, the Moabite, I said, what are you doing with that? She said, we know this water heals. And so certain people in that county gets the water. And when the one time that someone went there and tried to sell the water, it dried up. And so all the ancestors go there. People, when I am there, I ask, why do you come? And the one guy said, my grandmother is living off of this water. And another guy said he had a cyst on his finger, and it was attached to the nerve, so they couldn't operate. He drank the water that night. It fell off in the bed, and he woke up the next morning. It was gone.
Wow. Wow. That's something. I know that Yellowstone National Park has a lot of springs and aquifers and wells. But you know what? Those springs and aquifers and wells and things like that are all over our land. They're everywhere. And there's also a water supply beneath the surface of all of our land. And that water supply, it actually comes through fire hydrants. The water that comes through fire hydrants comes from beneath the ground. That's why it comes out so forcefully when it does come out. And those are things that we marked off prior to the even them making a fire hydrant. I mean, if you think about it, it's not nearly as many fires. So why are there so many fire hydrants? We'll just ponder that one for a minute. It's not because of fire. It's not because of fire. Because there are fire hydrants out in the middle of, fire hydrants are actually ancient springs under there, ancient water supply. Yes, Empress, she said, Google God's Acre Healing Springs, South Carolina. Healing Springs, South Carolina. If there are healing springs in every territory, I know there are plenty, many of them here, but you have to actually hike up through the woods to get to them, most of them. And every now and then, someone will open a resort that has a hot springs, a hot springs resort, but that's not the same as the ones that are the natural ones that are not controlled or, that have not been tampered with by foreign energies. And then the thing is, even when our energies go to those places, it's going to raise the level of healing that happens just because of our energies, our natural energies being there. And so we can live forever in these bodies, but that's the Trinity. Our mind, which is our direct connection to our ancestors who are not outside of us, they're within us because our mind is within us. It is us. We are mind. We are a manifestation of the ancestors. So mind, the soul, which is the feelings and the divine urges that the ancestors give us, and then our sovereign, original, indigenous, natural, divine bodies that are so valuable and so precious that we must take better care of them. And I think, we're all guilty of not taking as good a care of our temples, but we're getting better. That's the thing about it. As we continue to wake up, we're getting better at taking better care of our temples. But even when we were asleep, they used to say black don't crack. They wanted us to accept that moniker. Okay, they can put that way, but we're not black. More is more. How about that? Something like, we'll go with that one instead. More is more. So, as part and parcel of our national strategy and the enhancing of our Trinity, our Holy Trinity. We're doing things that are going to enhance the Holy Trinity so that we can so that further clarity That's really what we're really going for, is clarity, ancestral clarity of all that has to do with us, because it's such a thin line between the hypothecation and what is real. You know, in terms of you really have to be awake in order to know. It becomes plainer the longer you're awake. You know, the difference between that which is dead and corporate and corpse and that which is living. It becomes plainer. It's clearer to me now more than ever, the difference between the two. But when we were first waking up, we had to know that capital letters and black ink was not us. That was a manifestation of death and deadness and capitalism. And that red ink and all lowercase letters is the ancient, sovereign, true manifestation in writing, should we choose to manifest that way. As part and parcel of our national strategy to get back to the ways of our ancestors, we are consecrating. Consecrating means focusing on and setting aside specifically for a particular event. We are consecrating our sovereign temples with a 3-day water-only fast on December 13th, December 14th, and December 15th. And as sovereigns, you're free to do that however you choose to do it. If you choose to just fast from television, or fast from meat, or fast from whatever you want to fast from, we will be fasting from all food and anything that's not water for those 3 days. And that's another arsenal, another tool in our arsenal. And the reason that's important too is the food that we consume is starting to change also. Yes, the food is starting to change. You can see it. And that's another reason why the things that you see in the store shelves and all of that, that stuff is being switched and changed. All of it. So some things that we could find last year, we can't find this year. And that's not a bad thing. They're taking a lot of the junk out, too, in preparation for what's to come. So we chose December 13th, 14th, and 15th because the 14th is the new moon for December, and this new moon is very important. All the other ones were important too. This one is particularly important because it's leading up to December 21st. And December 21st this year, energetically, is going to be like no other, like nothing we've experienced in this lifetime. But the third eye must be the first eye by then. And it is for most of us. We can see with our spirit before the eyes witness what it is that we saw in our spirit. And then it manifests with the two eyes later. And so the 14th is also, the Albions are using that science in order to do their quote-unquote fake, fraudulent, non-existent electoral college vote or whatever. But we don't give consent or permission for that. I just thought that was interesting that they would pick that day to pretend to do something because they're using our science, or they were using our science, but that science belongs to us. So we're not speaking life into what they're doing, we're speaking life into what we're doing. December 14th is the new moon, so on the 13th and the 15th, we're going to continue to honor the new moon. December 21st is a day and a time in the energy where the planetary alignment is going to be something that it has not been for many thousands of years. many thousands of years. That day will be as powerful as each one of us makes it, as are all of our days. We get to choose how powerful our days are. And December 21st will be one of those days, very, very powerful days, very powerful. It will be exactly what it should be. Because after that time period, you're going to see the more of what's been happening, where we're doing our demonstrations and the demonstrations are done and all of the obstacles are moved out of the way quickly, and we're going and doing and being ourselves much more easily on our land. For those who've been demonstrating, you know, in preparation for the many who are coming. So the energies and the way is being cleared for the Moors who are coming, and many of them are our kin, you know, who have been watching from the sidelines while that system implodes, the fake corporate paper system implodes on itself. And they're going to be looking for a way out of that, and we will have assisted in notification that we're awake so that it won't be so difficult for them. So I'm excited about that for us, you know. But they still have to do their own, work.
Islam.
They have to do their own demonstrations. Yes, Islam.
And so I was talking earlier about the prodigal son. When our kin becomes awake, we can't say we've been here all this time doing all this work and then shun them like the older son did the younger son. They're to be embraced, put a robe, a ring, and the slippers on their feet, because the numbers will grow, and we want to love all our kinship. Islam.
Islam. Brilliant, 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 brilliant. Absolutely brilliant, yes. And the thing is, their reward is going to be equal to our reward, even though Judah, came first. And we know what that means. Send Judah first. That means send Judah to kick them doors in so everybody else can come on in. So, yes, we are all Judah. And it seemed like it might have been a little bit harder for us, you know. We had to go through some things that we can assist them in not having to go through. And some of them are still going to go through it because they're going to be, you know, wake up bucking like, you know, wild horses, you know. But we'll be here to assist, and that's the one thing I'm glad about is not a single one of us has to go anywhere that we don't want to go, or go through anything that we don't have to go through. None of us. Because we know better now. So I'm excited for us, the Holy Ones, sumus de sanctum unum. We are the Holy Ones. And when we know what the hypothecation of that is. The hypothecation of that is that quote-unquote Father, Son, and Holy Ghost peace. That's the hypothecation of the matriarchal sovereignty of God. And and matriarchy and patriarchy has nothing to do really with male and female. It's really energy. So we're not putting our sons down at all. In fact, we're uplifting them too. It's up to us to keep doing what we're doing, you know, because it is with us that all of that stuff started. And we shall end it. Period. So It's an honor. It is an honor. I'm just glad our ancestors decided that we could come and be manifested at this time. This is an exciting time for our nation because we're getting to see things that we never thought we'd see in this lifetime. And now we're able to see the fruits of our labor. I'm excited about that. Are there any other questions or comments or demonstrations or anything of that nature? Okay. Islam. Yes, we are Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end, and even beyond those. Time never was when we were not. There never was a time when we did not exist. We've always been and we always will be. And with that, we will meet again on tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's every Thursday at 7 Eastern Standard here on this same pre-conference call and YouTube channel. Peace and grand rising to the heirs.
Grand rising.
Grand rising to the air.
Grand rising. Peace and love.
Peace and grand rising.
Peace and love.
Grand rising. Grand rising.